Bernhard Habla and IGEB. Bernhard Habla was born on February 24th, 1957, in Göppingen, part of the Stuttgart region of Baden-Württemberg in southern Germany. After completing his undergraduate work, he studied musicology at the University of Würzburg, earning his master's degree in 1984. He continued his studies as a graduate assistant to Wolfgang Suppan, director of Institute 13, Ethnomusicology, at the University of Music and Performing Arts in Graz, Austria. Specializing in the history of wind instruments, he earned his doctorate in 1990. Wolfgang Suppan, the director of Institute 13 at the University of Graz since 1974, was an eminent ethnomusicologist. Author of multiple articles and books on wind music, he is perhaps best known for his New Lexicon of Wind Music and the Wind Music Research Bibliography, 1966-2003. He was active in helping found many societies, such as the Johann Joseph Fuchs Society in 1955, the International Society for Jazz Forschung in 1965, the Study Group for the Research of Historical Folk Music, Sources, in the International Council for Traditions of Music and Dance, ICTMD, in 1967, and WASB, the World Association for Symphonic Bands and Ensembles, in 1981. Most important for our purposes, however, is IGEB, the International Society for the Research and Promotion of Wind Music. Suppan's appointment to the University in Graz in 1974 gave him the opportunity to form a new society dedicated to the exploration of all aspects of wind music, something that had been discussed as early as 1966. While there were band organizations, such as the American Bandmasters Association, that published the Journal of Band Research, containing scholarly papers, there was no association solely dedicated to wind music research. IGEB's organizational meeting took place in Graz in 1974. Suppan was elected president and Eugen Brixel general secretary. When Bernhard joined in 1985, he became secretary general and editor of the newsletter, Brixel becoming vice president. News of this new society began reaching America soon after its founding. Paul Bryan of Duke University and David Whitwell from Los Angeles had been invited to serve on the board of advisors. At the 1987 CBDNA national meeting, Bryan distributed an open invitation to join IGEB. A 1988 newsletter listed 28 U.S. members out of 401, with the 126 Swiss being the largest group. I had joined in 1983 and attended IGEB's 8th meeting in Oberschützen, Austria in 1988. I remember that most of the papers were in German, but the camaraderie was such that this was only a minor inconvenience. Alta Musica 14 contains papers from the 1988 Oberschützen and 1990 Toblach meeting. My paper was one of 6 in English, the other 13 being in German. It was at this 1988 meeting that I had the pleasure of meeting Zoltán Falvi, one of Hungary's foremost musicologists. He was at that time director of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences in Budapest. He and Suppan had been discussing the possibility of establishing a joint institute to promote the research of Pannonian music and culture. Pannonia was the old Roman province that once had spread from Vienna to Belgrade right and left of the Danube River. Graz University supported the plan and authorized the Pannonische Forschungsstelle, or Pannonian Research Center, to be added to Institute 12 at Oberschützen. In 1990, Suppan directed Bernhard to go there and establish this new center. Bernhard, having just completed his doctorate, was a logical choice. Institute 12 of the University of Music and Performing Arts Graz is a music academy. In Oberschützen, it has a beautiful building with many classrooms and practice rooms with a separate dormitory for its students. At one end, it has a public library on the first floor and a fine restaurant open to all on the second floor. It also has a chamber music hall and a concert hall. Oberschützen is a lovely, peaceful community in Burgenland, Austria, near the Hungarian border, with a population of 2,414 citizens in 1991. It has a town hall, complete with a stork's nest, a bank, a post office, a general store, a bookstore, 2 bars, and 2 churches, evangelical and Catholic. There are probably a few other small stores, but those are basically the ones I remember on the one main street. People are friendly. One would not walk by a person without saying Grüß Gott, the traditional greeting in that part of Austria. Following Suppan's instructions, Bernhard moved to Oberschützen in 1990 to organize the Pannonian Research Center. Apparently, the Oberschützen director was not very pleased to have the center added to his institute. Bernhard was given space for only 2 workstations and a closet in the very back of the public library, behind the bookshelves. How he was able to accomplish what he did with such limited resources is a tribute to his skills as administrator, researcher, editor, writer, and his cheerful demeanor. He greatly expanded musicological research at the Institute while making friends everywhere, and soon was an important member of Oberschützen society. Apparently, this music academy did not have any kind of orchestra, so in his first year there, he and conductor Peter Forscher founded the Pannonische Blasorchestra. The orchestra has concentrated on original compositions for the wind band and has recorded many CDs. In 2008, it began a Europa Symphony project of 6 CDs recording symphonies of European composers. At a time when many conductors believed that band music began in 1911 with Holst's First Suite, as declared by a famous American university band director, here the PBO recorded Gossek's 1794 Symphonie Militaire, Joseph Küffner's 1825 Musique Militaire, Paul Fauchet's 1826 Symphonie pour musique d'harmonie, and Hector Berlioz's 1840 Grande Symphonie funèbre et triomphale. Bernhard remained as president and guiding spirit of the PBO until 2013. During the 1988 Oberschützen meeting, Suppan asked if I would be interested in spending a semester in Austria lecturing on American band music. Receiving an affirmative answer, he applied to the Austrian Fulbright Commission to authorize a visiting scholar position. I applied, and in the spring of 1995 was assigned as a Fulbright visiting scholar to the Institute for Ethnomusicology at the University of Music and Performing Arts in Graz. In addition to lecturing on American band music, I was also expected to help the Austrian band movement. Realizing that I would need help with my minimal college German, he assigned me to the Pannonische Forschungsstelle in Oberschützen, where I renewed my friendship with Bernhard Habla. Zoltán Falvi, mentioned previously as one of Hungary's foremost musicologists, had a scheduled class at the Institute. Apparently, attendance was not required at this institution, as no student ever attended his weekly class. He would come down to our little office and work on his own project. He was trying to complete his work on the Targoto, and at times I would try to help him with technology. The first time he was there, we had lunch together. I was quite surprised when he asked me how old I was, an unusual question considered by Americans to be too personal, especially at one's first meeting. After I told him, he shouted, "Do!" at me. I knew enough about European customs to realize that he, as the older, was giving me permission to use the familiar form of you. A kind and gentle person, what we in New York would call a real mensch. We formed a lasting friendship. We were both awarded honorary membership in IGEB at the Oberwelts meeting in 2003. Working next to Bernhard in that closed space behind the books in the library, I would write my lectures in German, and then he would make them presentable. Those lectures were published in the Forschungsstelle Arbeitsberichte, and the director of the Fulbright program told me that these were the first publications about American band music he had ever seen in German. Several of those lectures were also published in the band magazine Clarino. They have since been published in English in Alta Musica Volume 36. But it wasn't just the lectures. When I first arrived, Bernhard's English was somewhat rudimentary, but with our conversations, his English improved enormously. Unfortunately, my German stayed at the elementary level because everyone there wanted to improve their English. Bernhard was just 4 years younger than my own daughter, and over the years I grew to think of him as a son as well as a colleague. In addition to working side by side in that small space behind the library, we had many pleasant evenings together, discussing life and music over many a Krugel. We also went to the opera in Graz, where I met his beloved Christina, the harpist in the opera orchestra. He also invited me to join the Minichor. Everyone was so friendly, and I was soon a regular member, singing in German and at times Hungarian at rehearsals and occasional church services. At the end of the semester, I invited them all to dinner, and they presented me with a beautiful desk pen holder that will sit on my desk as long as I live to remind me of those pleasant days. Here is only a small picture of the occasion, with Suppan next to me, and Doris Schweinzer, IGEB's amazing and indispensable secretary in charge of administrating IGEB, sitting across from us. I was very sad when the semester came to an end and I had to return to America, but we continued to work together in promoting IGEB. In addition to frequent emails, we saw each other at the Society's biennial meetings and the yearly trips to the Midwest Band Clinic in Chicago. As if the work in forming the PFS was not a sufficient challenge to Bernhard, while he was collecting music and books on wind bands, he also gathered instruments, memorabilia, and even uniforms related to bands, especially from the 19th century. Oberwelz provided him with an old venerated house, which he redesigned and filled with the materials he had collected. Unique in Austria, the Austrian Wind Music Museum opened on August 15, 1997. Bernhard served as scientific director and trained the museum staff. Here are two examples from the collection. Bass drum wagons were being drawn by St. Bernards were common in Austrian military bands in the 19th century. This original drum carriage of the Austrian Infantry Regiment 77 was rebuilt in Germany, where it had been kept in a regimental museum. The Schellenbaum, or Jingling Johnny, was one of the Turkish Janissary instruments introduced into the Harmonie Musik ensembles near the end of the 18th century, along with the bass drum, cymbals, and tambourine. While still seen in Germany, they were abolished in Austria in 1860. This is a modern example from 1930. The museum also collected uniforms from various marching ensembles. Here are two examples from the band of Außerwildgraten in East Tyrol, along with a dedicatory plaque honoring Bernhard for his work at the museum. That's something. Meanwhile, back at the PFS in Oberschützen, Bernhard, in addition to gathering music and books from all over Austria, was inaugurating many imaginative projects. On Sunday, April 30th, 1995, Bernhard organized a village full of music. As seen on the program, musical combinations were scheduled to play at various times at houses scattered around the village during the day. Then a concert at the cultural center followed by a buffet. Note some of the musical combinations: ensembles of flutes, trombones, or horns, guitar and flute duo, a string quartet, a chorus, and trumpets with timpani. As I remember, it was quite a success, and I am told the Day of Music still exists as a yearly event. Another of Bernhard's very imaginative projects was presenting opera excerpts using authentic 18th century Harmonie Musik arrangements. These 8-piece ensembles of pairs of oboes, clarinets, horns, and bassoons were popular at aristocratic courts that could not afford to have full orchestras. But for these performances, it wasn't just the music. Working with the teachers, and older students at the Oberschützen Evangelical Real Gymnasium, the stories of the operas were told by a narrator, while the students presented a shadow theater for Oberon, a picture book for Die Zauberflöte, a puppet theater for the Freischütz, and a picture book for Die Zauberflöte painted by the students, the residents of a retirement home. I'm having trouble reading. Each was accompanied by the Institute's Harmonie Musik. That's the Freischütz. And there's the Zauberflöte. Okay. 10 years after these successful opera performances, Bernhard once again involved school children. Daniel Gottlieb Steibels was a very famous pianist, perhaps best known as the German upstart who challenged Beethoven to a piano duel. In 1810, he composed a large pantomime ballet in 3 acts entitled Der blöde Ritter oder Die Macht der Frauen. The plot concerned a shy young man in the age of chivalry, who should be a knight, but would rather be a confectioner. Through his love for a young lady, however, he learns the knight's craft and becomes a brave fighter. Joseph Trebensee was first oboist in the Austrian Emperor's Harmony, and a very famous arranger for that combination. With a University Harmonie Musik playing Trebensee's arrangement, 2 conservatory students as narrators, Class 4A from the Oberschützen Gymnasium doing the ballet, and Class 4C building the scenery, they gave performances in Graz and the Kulturmuseum in Oberschützen. The Harmonie Musik also made a beautiful CD of the 12 musical numbers. I should slow down. Bernhard was elected president of IGEB in 2000. That same year, he inaugurated a series of listings of works for instrumental, solo, and wind orchestra. As you can see, this is quite an ambitious undertaking. Volumes 1 through 8 were published by Johann Clement in Vienna and are still available for sale. I don't know if they sell anything at all. Volumes 9 through 15, however, were made available in full digital PDF format and are available for downloading by current members of IGEB. Go to the IGEB website, then Resources, and then Digital Books on Wind Orchestra and Solo Repertoire. Here is a sample in Chippet from the cornet list, Leroy Anderson Bugles Holiday for 3 cornets or trumpets. In order to make rare out-of-print publications more available for researchers, in 2002, Bernhard began a series of reprints, starting with Emil Kaiser's 1895 collection of historical marches for the Imperial Army in full scores. This was followed by 3 books dealing with military music and bands, 1 in German and 2 in English. Next was musicologist Achim Hofer's 5-volume compilation of the 114 marches of the 1817-1839 Royal Prussian Army March Collection, in full scores. The 6th volume in the series was Nemitz's 1827 General Trumpet School. The 7th volume, August Kalkbrenner's 1882 biography of William Wieprecht, posed a special problem. The original text was in Fraktur, a typeface that has not been in general use since 1941 and is no longer taught even in German schools. Bernhard's loyal and knowledgeable assistant, Verena Paul, came up with an imaginative solution: align each page of the modern German and the illustration by L. Keating Johnson to the Fraktur original. One can thereby see a single page in 3 versions: Fraktur, Modern German, and English. Manfred Heidler prepared a preface in German and English for those who are not familiar with this very important Prussian bandmaster. All of these reprints are available for sale on the IGEB website. Having accomplished all the projects mentioned so far, one may wonder how Bernhard found time for his many publications. For example, from 1990 to 2015, he published and edited 26 editions of the Arbeitsberichte, or reports on the activities of the Research Center. Most were written by Bernhard, but there were also reports from others, including the original lectures in German from my stay in Oberschützen. He also edited 12 editions of Alta Musica, most containing more than 20 scholarly papers presented at the biennial meetings. He also edited Suppan's Festschrift and his Wind Music Research since 1966, a bibliography. As for his original writings, most important is his critical study on the instrumentation of the wind orchestra from the invention of valves for brass instruments until the Second War in Austria and Germany, which is volume 12 in the Alta Musica series. Verena, his very efficient assistant, posthumously edited his inventory and overview of available German and Austrian sheet music for winds from the 19th century to World War II, now published as Alta Musica 38. Ever since Bernhard came to Oberschützen in 1990, he had been collecting anything he could find relating to harmony music, wind bands, and even salon music from all over Austria. Libraries of long dormant organizations, personal collections, music no longer in use because of changes of instrumentation. In short, anything dealing with wind music. Instruments and accessories were also collected, but they were sent to the museum Bernhard had founded. Where he stored all these items in that cramped little space behind the library is a mystery to me. But in 2013, a more enlightened director of Institute 12 decided to move the public library to another place and gave Bernhard that single library room for the use of the PFS. In the process, however, the PFS expanded into the International Center for Wind Music Research. Movable cells were installed, and the room became a very workable research facility. Note the brief list of their holdings. More will be said about this research center in a few moments. After many years of courtship, Bernhard married Christine Hager in August 2013. Together, they built a house in Oberschützen and looked forward to many years of happy married life. Tragically, that was not to be. Bernhard's leukemia ended his life just 3 years later, leaving Christina completely despondent and inconsolable. In 2017, Bernhard was posthumously elected honorary president of IGEB. With Bernhard gone, and apparently some new budget cuts in place, the center was now in the charge of IGEB Secretary General David Gasher and Bernhard's faithful assistant, Verena Paul. I am greatly indebted to them both for their help in preparing this talk. They have prepared a very interesting and enlightening online tour of the center that will show you just how important this center is for wind music research. I urge you to explore it for yourself by going to the IGEB website, igeb.net, then Resources, click here on the Institute Oberschützen, and then press the play arrow in the lower left-hand corner of the film. Okay. I thank you for your attention.